YouTube, this is HHM Man here for Halloween Horror Nights 2014 house reviews. Now, if any of you guys know, if you follow my channel, that I go to Halloween Horror Nights every year for employee preview night. This year is no different. I attended the event last night, which was amazing, by the way. There's a lot I could say about it. But before I get into the house reviews, just to let you know, this is a disclaimer. It was previews. It was a preview night. So a lot of effects weren't working. A lot of things may change, as well as my opinion on some of the houses. So just a heads up, this is not my full review. It's not my final review. This is just my experience with preview night. So yeah, guys, let's get started. All right, so the first house of the night I went into was From Dusk Till Dawn. From Dusk Till Dawn, I feel that it was one of those rushed houses. If you know what I mean, like it was the last minute. They just had to throw something into that slot because I didn't get anything out of it. To be completely honest, it was a pretty mediocre house. Very cliche, very normal. I mean, absolutely nothing special about it besides the girls. The girls were amazing. The girls were amazing. That was it. The scares weren't that good in this house. There was way too much stuff in the face. It wasn't even scary anymore. It was just very annoying. Like, you just going constantly moving stuff out your face. It was annoying. But that's my review of that house. If I had to give it a rating, based on preview night, not based on overall, because it could get better, I'd give it maybe a 6 out of 10. Definitely not a house that I would wait more than 30 minutes for, if that. I only waited 30 minutes for it, and then at the end of the night, it was actually a walkthrough. It was less than 10 minutes, if that. So that should tell you that this house is definitely not worth the wait. All right, so moving on to our next house. The next house of the night I went into was The Walking Dead, and I have to say I was absolutely blown away by this house. If anything, I have to say this house was house of the year. You can hear the theme music in the background. That's why I have this playing. This, in my opinion, has to be house of the year because of the fact that they put so much effort into it. Everything is nice and detailed. There's the most scare actors I've ever seen in a house before, and I got scared. And I never get scared. So, bring your girlfriends to the house. They'll definitely be all over you. So, just a heads up for that. But yeah, if I had to give The Walking Dead a rating, I would say it would be 9 out of 10. The only reason why I give it a 9 is because of, like I said, it was a preview night. There are so many people in the maze, and we stopped so many times that it took away from the experience. But other than that, if you're just keep constantly moving through the maze, it would be 10 out of 10. It was a perfect maze, perfect on scares, perfect on environments. Hands down, the best maze of this year. You heard it first here. Alright, so moving on to the next house I went into. The next one I went into was Halloween. I went into Halloween. This again was very close to The Walking Dead in terms of scares. The only reason why I put The Walking Dead over the top of that is because of the fact that the maze was so short. Well, it wasn't that short, but it could have been longer. If they would have put it into a sound stage, I think it would have done a lot better. But don't take that for anything. This was an amazing maze, hands down, 9 out of 10 as well. But of course, I gave the edge to The Walking Dead for obvious reasons. That soundstage maze tends to do a little bit better than a tent maze. But don't take anything from it. This house could only get better as the event goes on, because once again, this was a preview night. So definitely a house that you should go into. I'd wait well over 100 minutes to go into this house. One, because it's Michael Myers. Two, because it's actually an amazing maze. You actually get very, very scared in that maze because everything is so close to you. He's right there next to you every single step you take. So definitely a great house. Wait more than 100 minutes for it. 9 out of 10 rating. All right, moving on. All right, so the next house I went into was Roanoke. I'm not actually sure how to pronounce it, but it was a cannibal colony. I waited 30 minutes for this house, and I'd say it's well worth it. It's a great house. The only thing I have to say about it is that they aren't close enough to you. You know, you're not confined as much as you should be. you're not confined as much as you should be, or I thought you were going to be, because I mean it's a colony, it's a forest or whatever, and I thought would be really close to you. They weren't, but nonetheless, it was a very very good house. Scares, I'd give it maybe an 8 out of 10. Environment, I'd say 9 out of 10. The environments were great. Every environment this year was hands down the best environments I've ever been in for horror nights. Except for from Dusk Till Dawn, that one wasn't. I mean, it was cliche. But I'd say the Alien versus Predator. I went into that, which I'm going to get into next. Alien versus Predator, Halloween, everything was pretty detailed. I mean, there's not much else I can say about it, but it was very detailed. So, hands down to you, HHM. You did very good this year. Um, yeah, moving on to that. Roanoke is definitely a great time. I wait for it. I wait maybe 40, 45 minutes for that house. It wasn't the best house of the night, of course. I've already said which one was the best house of the night, and for my reasons. But yeah, say I'd say that house is about an 8 out of 10. 8 out of 10. Yeah, that's a good rating. 8 out of 10. 8 out of 10 for Roanoke. All right, so moving on, guys. I did not go through Dollhouse of the Damned because of the fact that it was so packed that night. Everything was well over 60 minutes. Besides from Dusk Till Dawn, that one was only like a 15-minute wait the whole night. So that should tell you something. Just saying, that should really tell you something. But yeah, the next house I went into was Alien versus Predator. I was highly disappointed in this house. I hate to say it, but I was highly, highly disappointed in this house. Um, the scares were not there. I don't know. I guess it was because it was preview night. Maybe the people were still getting used to the roles. Um, it definitely wasn't like American Werewolf in London in terms of the puppets for the xenomorphs. Um, I would say they stepped down a little bit in terms of the puppets. They weren't moving as fluent. They were close to you. They were very close to you, but they weren't moving as fluent. They weren't scary. I guess because they weren't as big as the werewolf from last year in American Werewolf in London, but it just didn't scare me at all, and it wasn't enough of them to get you scared, if you know what I mean. I mean, you see one maybe there, and you go through a whole room with nothing happening, but maybe sirens going off in a strobe and a loud sound, but nothing in there. You see, but then you'll run into another xenomorph or um, something maybe like 2 rooms later. So it's just the timing that really got this house the rating that it did, which is going to be a 7 out of 10. The reason why I give it a 7 is because of the environment. The environment was 10 out of 10 to me, but the scare factor is what brought it down. I'd give the scare factor maybe like a 6.5 out of 10, just because it wasn't enough. I barely even saw a predator in this house. So basically, the house should be called Alien instead of Predator. And definitely not Alien versus Predator, if you know what I mean. They're just there. It was no one doling each other. It's just, I don't know, guys. It was just a very disappointing house. I'm very sad to say, because that was one of the houses I was actually looking forward to this year. So, um, ah, yeah, I hope this house gets better as the event goes on, which most houses do. But we'll see what happens as time goes by. So that was all the house reviews I have for you guys tonight. As I said in the beginning of the video, I did not go through all the houses. I did not go through Dracula Untold, which I really wanted to go to, but I had school the next day, and it was already about 12 o'clock when I had to leave. So I had to wake up at 5:30 in the morning to go to school the next day. So I couldn't do it. I really wanted to, because I think that's going to be the sleeper house of the year, from what people were telling me that did go into the house. But we'll see Friday, tomorrow, what happens. So um, I can get you guys a full review once I go through all the houses a few more times. This is like once again, this is my preview review. So did not go through Dracula, did not go through Giggles and Gore, and did not go through Dollhouse of the Dam. So once I go through those, I'll get you guys those reviews right away. but unfortunately I haven't. Um, so yeah, guys, that pretty much wraps up our house reviews for this year's event. Now moving on to the tips that I usually give you guys in terms of what direction you should go in the park. Um, Usually, I'd say go to the right. Go to the right every year for Horror Nights, but this year's a little bit different. If you go to the right, you have a chance of missing out on the really good effects that are in Halloween, and I would say Dollhouse of the Dam, but I haven't gone in it, so I couldn't say that. But I would say this falls into the same line as what I'm about to say. Tents, of course, letting a lot of sunlight once it's daytime, once you get to the event. If you go to the right, you have the risk of going into a tent and having a bunch of daylight showing through it, and it's just not going to be as scary as it would be. As let's say you go 9 o'clock at night when the sun is gone. So that's just something to keep in mind. But however, that will be the best way to go because of the fact that if you want to go to Halloween, it is in a tent. You have to go to the right, down Hollywood Boulevard through Face Off, and that's going to be the most packed house of the night. I can tell you that right now. Um, Last night, an employee preview night, the wait time reached over 150 minutes for that maze. This is going to be hands down the most popular house of the night. So if you're not afraid to lose out on some of the scares due to daylight, go straight to Michael Myers Halloween. Um, because of the fact that, of course, it's going to be the most popular house of the night. It's the biggest name at the event. So definitely go there first if you don't mind missing out on some of the scares for the sunlight coming in. Um, but other than that, that's the only reason why I would tell you to go to the right because the best houses, surprisingly, this year actually at the front of the park. The Walking Dead, like I said, is house of the year. It is house of the year in my opinion, and many other people's opinions that went to preview night last night. Everyone loved The Walking Dead. It's not enough I can say about it. It's just his hands down the best house this year so far, um, in close proximity to Halloween. But I'd say The Walking Dead won this one until I go into the last three houses. Maybe they might change my opinion. Who knows? But I would say go to the left first. Go to The Walking Dead. Alien versus Predator once again. It's not a good house. It's a beautiful maze, but not good on scares. So if you want to get scared, I wouldn't go to that house particularly. But it's really up to you. This is just my opinion of which way I would go. So it's just really optional. Like how are you feeling that day? Um, so what I'm gonna say is the direction I would take was go down Hollywood Boulevard first, hit Halloween, and then go back over to Roanoke and Dollhouse of the Dam. Should By the time you get through Roanoke, it should be a little bit more darker before you go into Dollhouse of the Damned. So it should let in a little bit less sunlight, but definitely hit Michael Myers first because everyone's going to be running back there. I can tell you that now. So yeah, go down to Halloween. That's going to be the first house, Roanoke, and then Dollhouse of the Dam, which is going to let you right out by Men in Black. And once you do that, you go over to past Diagon, go to Giggles and Gore. It's going to be dark by then. It should be anyway. It depends what time you get there, how packed it is that day. But it should be dark by then. And you can go through Giggles and Gore, which is another house that also, if you don't mind getting messed up by the sunlight, then it should be a good house. I heard pretty good reviews about it. But it's really up to you. But you can hit that house and go around, go to straight to The Walking Dead. Don't go to Alien versus Predator or Dracula yet, because of the fact that when you exit Walking Dead, you run into those mazes anyway. But Walking Dead is going to be one of the more packed ones because of the fact that it's a big name and people want to see it. So it's also one of the best house of the year. So go to The Walking Dead. Once you exit The Walking Dead, it exits right in front of Alien versus Predator. You can hit that house. Once that exits, it exits right next to Dracula Untold, so you get hit that house. Then go back, and that exits right next to the from Dusk Till Dawn. You can hit that house, which should be the last house of the night that you go into because it is the worst house. Um, but overall, I'd say this year was pretty good. I'd give it maybe an 8 out of 10. The Purge Scare Zone was excellent. Was a lot of scare actors this year. Surprisingly, there really hasn't been that many in the past years, and I'm glad they brought it back. This is really good for Horror Nights, and I like the direction they're moving in. Um, they could do the IP houses a little bit more better, not just throwing a random one because no one really wanted to see Dust to Dawn come as a maze. To be honest with you, um, I would say they could have done a little bit better with that. I feel that it was so rushed. It was so rushed and just thrown together, and it was just it wasn't a good house. And I expected that, to be honest with you. I expected that. So let's see what happens, guys. But overall, this is my preview review for Halloween Horror Nights 2014. You guys have a great time tomorrow. If you need more tips, just comment on the box below. Ask me any questions you guys would like. And yeah, guys, it's the AG Chin Man out.